The Piano Lesson has been out on Netflix for a couple of months. This is feature debut of director Malcolm Washington, son of Denzel Washington. It's based on a play by August Wilson. Other movies based on his plays include Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. The movie stars Samuel L. Jackson, John David Washington, Malcolm's own brother and Denzel's other son, Danielle Deadwyler, Ray Fisher, Corey Hawkins, and Michael Potts. The story takes place in the 1930s and takes place almost entirely within the house of a black family in Pittsburgh. The house currently belongs to Bernice, a single mother raising a young daughter, and with them lives their uncle Doker. But then others converge on the house in the same period of time. Another uncle pops by, a local preacher who is courting Bernice is coming over, and perhaps most importantly, Bernice's brother, Boy Willie, arrives with his friend to try and talk her into selling the old family piano that is currently standing in the living room of the house. The piano is clearly an important family heirloom and features carvings of some of the ancestors etched into it, and has become a symbol of defiance and independence for the family. But Boy Willie makes the case that what use is the legacy when you're not using it to a specific goal, and proposes to sell the instrument and use the money to buy land so that he can start building a better, more prosperous legacy for the future generations. And conflict arises around that dilemma, what to do with the piano. So the setup, I think, is very strong. I like the central conflict of the movie. I think it's compelling, and both sides have solid arguments, solid points of view that you can sympathize with. I like that each of the characters is drawn rather distinctly and played very well. In general, the performances are probably the strongest point of the movie for me, particularly John David Washington, for whom this is probably his best role yet, and Michael Potts, whose monologue about being a musician was really sort of poignant and strong for me. And by the way, the play is written cleverly so that each of the main players gets a great monologue at some point to showcase their acting. And also, I didn't really mind the film being stagey, because it is very stagey. It feels like a play. It takes place entirely on a single stage in the single house. But there is a huge problem with the movie for me, and it's the ghost subplot. See, there are hints of it from very early on, that Bernice is seeing the ghost of the past slave owner who owned her ancestors. And I thought, okay, well, that's an interesting way to symbolically represent the generational trauma and what it does to people. But as the film goes on, that element becomes more pronounced, and the climax is essentially an exorcism scene where it becomes apparent that the ghost is in fact real, that it physically interacts with the characters. You can't really interpret it as just a symbol anymore. And I really disliked that. I thought it was a completely unnecessary departure and distraction from an already compelling conflict that you had within the film. And instead of just talking that out, suddenly it's ghosts and exorcisms. It didn't work for me at all. I was completely checked out during the final 20 minutes, and I can't understand the decision to finish the story that way. And yeah, it may just be me and my personal opinion. If you think that works for you, great. But speaking for myself, it was like the movie fell off a cliff, and I lost most of my respect for it. I think it had a lot of potential, and perhaps more importantly, it was on its way to realize that potential, but then for some inexplicable reason it decided to forego all of that. So yeah, end of the day, I unfortunately think the movie ends up being incredibly disappointing for me. Sometimes I think subtlety and restraint is much needed, and in this case it kind of goes out the window.